January, everyone, and I hope that 2014 has proved to be a happy and healthy new year for all of you thus far. Today we're going to practice a yoga sequence for cold hands and a warm heart, as my Irish nana used to say. This sequence is designed to lubricate your joints and lengthen and warm your muscles. It's also helpful, I find, for organizing my thoughts when I feel distracted and for energizing my mind when it is dull from winter's dark days. We're going to start with some sun salutations and some variations in the beginning. I'll show you some variations for those of you who aren't doing Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog, and or Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, upward facing dog. Start in Tadasana. Adjust the tops of your shoulders so they roll back towards the wall behind you. And from underneath your collarbones, lift your chest from the bottom to the top. Join your palms in Namaskar, keeping the tops of your shoulders rolling back, and from an inch below the collarbones, the chest lifting up. Inhale, take the arms up to Urdhva Hastasana. With an exhalation, take your hands to your waist and extend your spine forward. Take your hands onto the floor and make a concave spine. See that the shoulders keep rolling back towards the buttocks and move the chest forward from right below the collarbones. If the hands don't reach the floor, place them on the shins or the thighs. Take the hands back to Urdhva Hastasana and come up. Tadasana. Urdhva Hastasana. Uttanasana, concave spine. Now, with an inhalation, draw the abdomen up, away from the floor, and with an exhalation, walk the hands back and bring the spine towards the legs. Inhale and come back up to Urdhva Hastasana. Tadasana. Namaskarasana. Urdhva Hastasana. Uttanasana. This time, step back to Adho Mukha Svanasana. See that the abdomen continues to lift up towards the spine as you bring the heels down towards the floor. Step forward with the opposite leg, come back to Uttanasana. Urdhva Hastasana, Tadasana. Namaskarasana. Urdhva Hastasana. Uttanasana. Step back with the opposite leg to Adho Mukha Svanasana. Lift the abdomen and the outer hips up as you take the thighs back to bring the heels down. Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Keeping the toes tucked under. Invert the pose. Bring the pelvis down towards the wrists. Now, as you did in Tadasana, roll the tops of the shoulders back. Lift from underneath the collarbones and take the head back. Come back to Adho Mukha Svanasana by raising the hips and the abdomen up. Join the legs. And if you don't have any issues with your ankles, knees, hips, spine, shoulders, jump to Uttanasana. Otherwise, step back in. Come to Urdhva Hastasana, Namaskarasana, and then back to Tadasana. Take your hands to Paschimma Namaskarasana. In Paschimma Namaskarasana, the hands are in prayer position, like they were when you were in Tadasana, but now the hands are behind the back. Do you see how I press the space between my thumbs and my index fingers on both of my hands strongly into one another? Watch what that does to my upper arms when you view it from the side. Do you see how that rolls my shoulders back, turns my upper arms from the inside out? It even lifts my chest a little bit more. Bend your knees, keeping the abdomen lifting up and away from the thighs and moving back towards the spine, and then jump your legs 4 to 4.5 feet apart. Turn to the right for Parshvottanasana, intense stretch of the sides pose. See how I press my outer left heel down, the inner edge of my front foot down to stabilize my base as I raise my head up and extend my spine forward, much like I did in Uttanasana. But this time I'm bent forward, extending forward over one leg. See how I keep pressing my hands into one another to maintain the integrity of those Paschimma Namaskarasana arms. Come back through the center and turn to the other side. Remember to connect to that outer back leg foot, the inner edge of your front foot, to create stability in the base of the pose. Now watch, even as I extend forward over my front leg, see how I keep reaching through the heel of that back leg so that both of my legs remain as straight as they were when I was standing in Tadasana. Come back through the center. Release your arms, and take your arms up as you release your shoulders down. Turn to the right for Virabhadrasana 1. Connect to the outer edge of your left leg. Raise your chin up like you did in Parshvottanasana, and while exhaling, bend your front knee to come to Virabhadrasana 1. Move your right buttock bone forward towards the back of your right knee, but keep the left outer heel as close to the floor as you can. Inhale and come up. Reach through your arms as you turn to the left. Watch that the abdomen continues to do that same lift away from the front leg and draws back towards the spine. As you bend the left knee to form the right angle. The right angle is the angle between the thigh of the front leg and the shin of the front leg. So see how I move this left buttock bone towards the back of my knee, even as I move the inner back leg knee in the opposite direction. Reach up through your arms and press down through your back heel to come up. Come back to Tadasana. You can repeat that sequence several times. Continue to connect the actions of your body with your inhalations and your exhalations. Keep your inhalations and your exhalations as smooth, soft, and even as possible. Always breathe through your nose. comes Petey again. He always wants to join us on the mat. The next sequence of poses includes an inversion. If you're not regularly practicing headstand and handstand, Shavasana and Adho Mukha Vrikshasana, then this inversion isn't for you. Instead, you'll repeat the warm-up for full arm balance, which is Urdhva Badanguliasana, upward interlaced fingers pose. See how I started Namaskarasana. Again, the same rules apply. See how I roll the shoulders back and move the outer elbows in and lift from an inch below the collarbones. From here, interlace your fingers all the way. Turn the palms away from your chest, and as you squeeze your forearms and your elbows in towards each other, draw those upper arm bones back towards the wall behind you. Now, as you press your inner heels down and move your inner thighs back, raise your arms up from the bottom of your armpits all the way up through your inner wrists. Raise your arms up. With an exhalation, keep your inner thighs lifting up and moving back. Exhale, lower your arms and come back to Namaskarasana. Change the interlace of your fingers. See how, as my arms stretch out in front of me, I keep pulling my upper arms back so that my shoulder blades stay up against my back ribs. Watch how, as I take my arms up, I lift my inner thighs up and move them back so that I make one straight line from my wrists to my shoulders, to my hips, to my ankles. Exhale, release your arms back down, bring your hands to Namaskarasana. Again, if you're not already practicing Adho Mukha Svanasana, Shirshasana, and Adho Mukha Vrikshasana, downward facing dog, headstand, and full arm balance, you're not going to try this now. Repeat Urdhva Badanguliasana several times, going in and out with movement. Otherwise, from dog pose, we'll kick up to full arm balance. Remember how we had to squeeze the forearms and the elbows in towards each other in Urdhva Badanguliasana. That same compactness applies for Adho Mukha Vrikshasana and creates stability in the arms as you raise the legs overhead. Start with your hands a few inches away from the wall. Look down at the space between your two wrists. See that your inner wrists are in line with the outer corners of your chest. From your inner wrists, press down into the floor and lengthen forward through your thumbs. See that the weight is placed evenly between the inner wrist and the outer hand. With an exhalation, come to downward facing dog. Keeping your shoulder blades pulled up away from your wrists and pressed deep onto your back ribs, raise your head up. See how, as I lift my outer hips up, I move my shoulders away from the wall. Walking in, with your exhalation, lift one leg up and kick the other, so your two heels come onto the wall. Now, see how, just like I did in Urdhva Hastasana and Urdhva Badanguliasana, I squeeze those forearms and the elbows in and lengthen all the way up through my armpits. With an exhalation, Take one leg off the wall, keep the other leg stretching up, and lower yourself back to Uttanasana. Inhale and come up. We'll repeat with the other leg. So we'll kick up with one, but come down with the other. Again, from Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Walk in until your shoulders are directly over your wrists. Keep the shoulders lifting up, away from the floor, and pressed away from the wall. And with an exhalation, lift your other leg and kick the opposite leg. Look towards the wall. Bring the weight of your body onto your fingertips so your elbows move towards the wall, but move your shoulder blades in the opposite direction. Do you see how that just made me grow taller? Now watch as I come down with the other leg this time. Come back to Uttanasana. And then come up. Our next two poses include forward bends and a variation of Halasana or Halasana Plow Pose itself. I'm going to turn my mat sideways now and take a blanket and place it on my mat. The Parshvottanasana pose that we did prepared our hamstrings for these poses. Start in Dandasana. Inhale, raise your arms up like you did in Urdhva Hastasana, and with an exhalation, come to Padangushta Dandasana. In Padangushta Dandasana, see how I pull back on my toes with my fingers, but I press forward through my fingers with my toes to keep my arms extended. And then, watch, as I press my thighs down, I move my back ribs forward towards my toes and raise my sternum and my chin up. With an exhalation, bend your elbows out to the sides. And as you bend your elbows out to the sides, extend your spine forward towards your legs, just like you did in Uttanasana, but now you're seated on the floor. Inhale and come back through the Padangushta Dandasana stage of Paschimottanasana. That's the pose we just did. Let's repeat it. From Dandasana, keeping the thighs pressing down and the heels extended forward, raise your arms up to Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, maintain that concave shape in your upper back as you hold your big toes. With an exhalation, bend your elbows out to the sides. This time, if you can hold your feet, do so. As you bend your elbows out to the sides, don't just pull your trunk down. Pull it forward and downward, forward and downward, forward and downward. Come back to Urdhva Hastasana in Dandasana. Bend your knees into your chest and swing your legs over your head. Bend your knees back. Come to Dandasana and Paschimottanasana. When your feet go over your head and come onto the floor, it's called Halasana, Plow Pose. We're going to go back and forth between Paschimottanasana and Halasana. Make sure that you have a clear space both in front of you and behind you. No cats allowed. going to do it with straight legs. You can repeat that several times, building up a nice heat in the body. We're going to do a variation of what we just did. It's instead of Paschimottanasana Halasana, we're going to do Bhavishya Konasana, seated angle pose, where the legs, oh, here he comes again. He's really enjoying all of the tapas, all of the heat that we're building up in this sequence. See how I keep pressing my thighs down and reaching through my heels, just like I did in Tadasana. But now my legs are wide apart in an Upavishta Kona, a seated angle. Just like that intermediate stage of Paschimottanasana, see how I reach for my big toes as I extend my spine forward and downward and forward and downward. And forward and downward. Now we're going to add in the rocking back to Supta Konasana, which is just like the plow pose, but the legs are apart like they were in seated angle. Remember, no cats allowed, Petey. Scoop. Look out, buddy. Ahimsa. Now I'm going to have to give Petey to my husband, who's filming this video, because I certainly don't want him to become an obstacle to my practice. Uh-oh, he escaped. Okay, now for the fun part, we're going to go from Upavishta Konasana to Supta Konasana and have some fun. Yoga should be, it's a disciplined practice, and of course one should take one's journey on the path seriously, but at the same time have to have some expression of inner joy, some outward expression of inner joy to what it is that you're doing with your body as you work with your mind. Remember that if you have any issues with your neck or your shoulders, if you're not doing inversions, you're obviously not doing Halasana, Paschimottanasana, Supta Konasana, Upavishta Konasana. Now for Shavasana. Sometimes in the winter, I don't do as long of a Shavasana if I'm feeling particularly dull or cold, but I always end with at least 10 minutes in Shavasana. You can also cover yourself with blankets, sweaters, socks, or turn the heat up in the room to keep your body temperature nice and warm. In Shavasana, the organs of action and the organs of perception move into a dormant state. Then the chitta, the awareness, can focus on the breath, where it is in the body. So not only its location, but its quality and its quantity. Is the inhalation as smooth and deep as the exhalations? And as my body, my mind, my breath, and my senses come together, I feel a connection to the whole